A day later, you were walking through the forest. Katsuki refused to slow down for just the Macy's. He wouldn't stop talking about how dramatic you had been, leading him to believe it was something more serious. You felt bad for derailing the mission, though after the first couple hours of his complaining, you snapped at him. "Alright, I get it, I'm sorry," you say exasperated. "I didn't even know what it was. Can you stop?" Katsuki glared, but reduced his rant to a grumble. Ejiro at least was still supportive. He offered to carry you until you were better, but truthfully after the first while, you felt up for the walk. Maybe not as rigorous of a pace as Katsuki set, but you managed with Ejiro dragging behind to slow Katsuki to your pace. You were thankful. It was depressing sleeping apart from Ejiro. You hadn't realized how addicted you'd become to the dragon's warmth. And it wasn't just you. Ejiro sulked in his separate bedroll, tossing and turning, his wings creating a gust of wind each time, until Katsuki yelled in frustration. "Oh, for fuck's sake. Just fucking hold hands or something, and go the hell to sleep." Ejiro and you exchanged looks, and you held out your hand with a timid smile. He took it happily. It wasn't as effective as having him next to you, but it did help you sleep. On the second night following the healer's visit, you tried to claim that your fever had probably gone down. Ejiro was momentarily delighted, though Katsuki settled you with an unimpressed look. He merely walked up to you and placed his hand on your forehead and said, "Nice try. You're close to dragon temp yourself." You deflate at your ruined attempt, and though Ejiro looks sad as well, he scolds you for pretending to be better. Your appetite had not returned, but you were hopeful that it would. That was until the third day, when the walk began to hurt your lungs again, when the vomiting began, and you couldn't keep down anything, not even dry bread, when the temperature fluctuations returned worse than before, and when your vision began to swim with dizziness. You caught the concerned glint in Katsuki's eyes, but he insisted that they keep moving forward. He was sure that the medicine the healer gave must make illnesses worse before they got better, that this was just what Macy's looked like in adults, and that did sound reasonable, though you grimaced to think how much worse it could get before you finally have a proper meal again. They walked the glade on the fourth day. You were lightheaded with effort and struggled to draw breath. Katsuki is ahead as usual, but Ejiro is fretting at your side. Shouldn't the medicine work by now? You pant heavily, trying to focus on getting oxygen and moving one foot in front of the other. "I don't know how that shit works," Katsuki says from in front of you. "It's just Macy's, shitty scales. It will pass for them like it does for all the brats that get it. We lost too much time. We can't afford to lose any more. Keep moving and it will be through your system before you know it, outsider." The world tilted, or rather, your body did. Ejiro was fast, snatching your hand and pulling you upright to lean on him. "Katsuki, maybe we should take a break?" His tone sounded panicked, though by now every sound that filtered through your ears was muffled and without clear meaning. Katsuki's feet dragged to an annoyed stop. "Ugh, you coddle them too much. It's not like they're dying." Then you coughed, a horrid, guttural cough, like you were choking. You reached for Ejiro, gripping his clothes to try and steady yourself, as waves of misery and dizziness compounded itself and assaulted your body and mind. "Traveler!" Ejiro shouted, frantic. What the hell is happening? You could sense Katsuki directly in front of you now. The coppery taste of blood invaded your mouth, and nausea added to the whirlpool. "Something's wrong," you managed to say, before a coughing fit possessed you again. You're forced on your hands and knees, your eyes water, and through it all you start to notice specks of blood splashing on the ground below you. The dark red stark against the light dirt. "This happened because you pushed them too far," Ejiro growled angrily. "It's the Macy's, Kirishima. I don't recall you coughing blood when you got it." "How the fuck was I supposed to know it would get this bag?" Katsuki countered. They'd set up an impromptu camp, merely placing their bags down and rolling out your bedroll under the shade of a tree. You were barely conscious before you lay down, and as soon as you closed your eyes, you were gone to the world. The fever had spiked, and you were wheezing as though you couldn't breathe. Your chest rose and fell rapidly. A sheen of sweat is already shimmering above your skin. Ejiro's eyes skimmed it all, and he whined. They're even worse than before. Give them more of that potion, Katsuki said, scrambling for something to do other than stare and watch you suffer. I did. It's not helping. Ejiro's tail swished agitated behind him. We need to turn back, Katsuki. Maybe it's not the messes. Maybe it's something else. We can't turn back. We've lost too many days, Katsuki reasoned. We'll never reach. They look like they're dying, Katsuki. What's the point of everything we've overcome if they die? Katsuki exhaled, his eyes drawn to you, trembling under the cover of your bedroll. You were so pale. You could almost see the loom of death hanging over you. Fuck, okay, Ejiro, give it a day. It could get worse before it gets better. If it doesn't clear up by tomorrow morning, we'll head back. Ejiro was reluctant. However, he knew that their quest was time-sensitive, and that Katsuki had made his decision with that in mind. They set up camp as normal, though neither could sleep that night. Both Dragon and Prince watched you slumber restlessly, as though demons plagued your dreams. Before the sun touched the horizon the next day, Ejiro was on his feet packing. I can't wait any longer. Katsuki couldn't argue this time, not when touching your head was akin to touching recently boiled water. Not when every breath sounded like it could be your last. Wordlessly, he helped Ejiro pack, shoving things haphazardly into their bags. He had made a bad call, and every time his eyes found your weakened form, he felt the spike of guilt. He was in the middle of rolling his bedroll angrily when a voice spoke from the forest. I had expected you to be further along in your journey by now. The healer from the village emerged from the thicket, curiously looking at the small group. Katsuki's rage rushed him, and he launched himself at the elderly healer. He snatched his collar and yanked him to face his fury, heedless of the little trinkets that tumbled from the pockets of his coat. You sold us faulty medicine, Katsuki seethed. The healer was flabbergasted and responded in an offended tone. I did no such thing. Then explain to me why the outsider is still like this. The healer glanced over Katsuki's shoulder and past Ejiro, who stood protectively in front of you. His eyes lit with interest. Well, isn't that peculiar? The healer swatted at Katsuki's hands on him, and Katsuki let go, mostly in shock. What's peculiar? Katsuki demanded irritably. Tell me, Prince, was your companion born in this country? The healer asked as he walked past Ejiro to kneel by you. Why does that matter? Katsuki snapped. No, they weren't born here, Ejiro answered anxiously. Ah, that explains it. A foreigner, the healer says, and he holds his two glowing fingers to your chest, over your heart as he did before. His eyes dim a little, and he straightens. My dear dragon, I hear your kind has good noses. Would you mind finding some herbs for me? He rifled through his coat pockets. There seemed to be at least 20 of them. He pulls out a vial with red herbs and another with a dark green flower with rounded petals. For the traveler? Ejiro asked. The healer smiled kindly. Yes. I'm not completely sure if the flower is native to this part, but I need a lot of these two ingredients in order to make the cure. He held the two vials for Ejiro to take. He uncorked them and smelled them separately. His eyes lit up. I smelled these when we were walking before. I know where they are. Great, the healer said. Now if you could hurry, I'm afraid your friend might not have that much time. Ejiro nodded hurriedly and ran off to find the herbs. Katsuki watched Ejiro go, agitated. What's this about? All this for Messis? Do you know the story of how Mescella came to be? The healer asked, as he continued to pull things from his coat pockets and from the large brown leather satchel he carried. There's a story? Katsuki questioned indignantly. The healer nodded and took up a mortar and pestle. He began to grind various plants together as he spoke. Mescella was developed, a man-made disease, before cities formed on the land and before all creatures intermingled in the country. A mad king ruled over the humans that resided here. He was an awful ruler, taxed too high, gave his people little to look forward to in life. Naturally, the people revolted against him. However, he expected it, and he prepared. He created Mescella and infected his kingdom with it to weaken the fighting force. What he did not expect was for his son to have kindness for his people. The prince couldn't bear to see his people suffer and die. People don't die from maces, Katsuki interrupted. People don't die from Mescella today, but it was created with the intent to kill, and it did kill hundreds of good people until the prince was able to manufacture a cure. Through magic, he ensured that the cure spread through the winds to all humans in this country. It was a rather small population then, but his actions were no less great. From then, the cure has been carried from the blood of each mother to their child, through the generations. The Mescella we deal with is merely a shadow. He waved a hand over your fragile and vulnerable form. Thus is its true face. The healer returned to his mixing. It's a miracle that I found you before it's too late. They would have been dead before the sun set on this day. Katsuki's anger diminished at the thought. Ejiro had been right. He'd pushed too hard. He'd called you dramatic when you'd been battling something fatal, and sparsely complaining about it at that. His actions had led you to death's door. Ejiro arrived soon after the healer had finished his story, holding an abundance of red herbs and dark green flowers. The healer took them gratefully. Could one of you start the fire? I must boil these. Katsuki snapped out of his stubber and grabbed the small soup pot they carried. Ejiro breathed life into the remaining wood from the previous night, giving the morning the sound of crackling fire it was not accustomed to. The healer took the pot from Katsuki and dumped the many ingredients he ground, and Ejiro spoils from his search. To finish, he poured water and stirred. We must wait. Ejiro is back by your side, guarding your unconscious form. Wait? How long? He asked anxiously. The healer smiled reassuringly. Not long, only until the color drains from the red herb. It felt like an eternity, though it couldn't have been more than 3 hours, judging from the sun's position in the sky. Katsuki had found himself sitting against a tree, near you and Ejiro with his arms crossed. Ejiro had barely taken his eyes off you, and when he had, it was to watch the pot, as though it would make the medicine finish faster. Katsuki had hardly taken his eyes off you either. Guilt crawled up his throat every time a violent quiver took over your body. The healer attended the pot meticulously, until finally, he removed the wooden spoon and held his palms to the broth. Both hands glowed blue, over the red mush. Katsuki straightened to see it better. From its center, the red bled into liquid gold. Only then, with the mixture still boiling, did the healer pull a syringe and needle from his satchel and dump it into the pot. Moments later, he fished it from the pot with his wooden spoon. Katsuki realized it was likely to sterilize it, and he then drew in the liquid gold from the pot, examining it within the syringe and nodding with approval. Ejiro tensed, swallowing nervously. That's a big needle. It was a big needle, even Katsuki could admit. It's a good thing they're asleep then, the healer said. But it does need to go into their heart. He moved to kneel by you. Can I hold a hand? Ejiro asked, chewing his lip. The healer smiled kindly. If you think it would make them feel better. Katsuki knew that Ejiro was an empathetic person. It didn't matter if you were unconscious. He wanted to support you even in your sleep. Though Katsuki suspected it was also so he could feel better. Ejiro wasn't a fan of needles, or medicine in general. Before the healer could raise the injection, Katsuki blurted, "Me too." He looked up questioningly. Katsuki walked over to you and placed his hand on your shoulder. He pointedly ignored the way Ejiro's eyes lit up and the amused quirk of the healer's lips. The healer hovered the needle over your heart, carefully checking its position, and then thrust the needle in one fast motion. You inhale sharply, the only break in your previous ragged breaths. Ejiro's hand squeezes yours. The healer pulls out the empty syringe and places his 2 fingers on your chest again. He's silent and contemplative, before smiling approvingly. "It seems to be working." "Their heart is slowing down." "Their heart?" Ejiro asked. A sped-up heart rate is the best indicator for Mescella. If their heart is slowing down, it means the cure is working. The effects of the cure was astounding. Within a few minutes, your breathing evened, your skin returned to a healthy color, and your temperature cooled. Ejiro's tail wagged happily behind him, at the tangible proof that you were healing. "I'm not understanding this," Katsuki scowled. "When Ejiro and I got Macy's, we weren't affected. We're not human, so our kind weren't around when the cure was distributed." "You are dragon-born, and he is a dragon," the healer explained. "You both have a natural affinity to human diseases. Most don't affect you at all. Mescella would affect you like a passing uneasiness, but is not so for humans, and most definitely not so for those without the prince's cure." The healer placed his blue fingers on your chest a last time. "It would seem that there's no more need for me. I shall be off." "What were you even doing out here anyway?" Ejiro asked curiously. "Well, it's not so often that a prince gives me such a hefty sum of silvers for my services. I was inclined to visit the busy markets of the city over," the healer said happily. Katsuki rolled his eyes. "Then you best be off before I decide to take it back." You were nearly doubtless that you'd been run over. Everything ached, and your mouth felt as though you'd swallowed sand. You moan, "Have I died and gone to hell?" "Traveler!" Ejiro's excited face pops into your field of vision. You hear the rhythmic thump of his tail wagging, and it makes you smile despite yourself. "You're finally awake." "I feel like I've been hit by a truck," you say. "What's a truck?" Ejiro asks with a tilt of his head. "A really, really big horse," you sigh, not in the mood to explain. "Can I have some water, please?" "Yeah, of course." Ejiro grabs a water skin and hurries back to you. You sit up, gulping the water down, and feeling 100 times better because of it. Across the crackling fire in front of you, you catch Katsuki's red eyes staring at you. "Oh shit," you think. He must be angry that you're slowing him down. You were about to apologize when he suddenly said, "Is your appetite back?" "Oh, you stumble on your words. I'm not sure." Wordlessly, he took a small bowl, ladled some soupy meal from the pot bubbling over the fire, and walked over to you. "Eat this." The steam rose in lovely swirls, wafting the smell into the air. You expect the wave of nausea that's been plaguing you the past few days, but were pleasantly surprised to find that the smell made your stomach rumble with hunger. Excitedly, you take the bowl from Katsuki and scoop the chunky soup into your mouth. You moan with delight. This was the first proper meal you'd had in days, and you devoured it with vigor. Licking your lips, you wonder if Katsuki would let you have seconds. "Sorry," he mumbles. You blink at him. "Sorry?" "For pushing you too hard." He's not looking at you, but yanks your bowl from your hand and ladles more soup in it. Oh, well, as you said, it was just a passing disease. I'm okay now. Thanks. You trip over your words, not used to an apologetic Katsuki. What did one do with that? Actually, traveler, as it turns out, the messies that you had were not as harmless as we thought, Ejiro said. They explained how the healer had been passing by and came across them, how it had to make a cure for you, and how you nearly died. Whoa, you said, with lack of a better word to fill the silence. It was hard to comprehend. Sure, you'd felt as though you were dying, but knowing that you'd been so close to death was purely baffling. Oh, too bad for you, huh, Katsuki? You tried to lighten the mood with a joke. Would have been nice for you to pack up and go home. Don't talk like that, outsider, Katsuki said in a low tone, unlike what you'd ever expect to leave his mouth. You froze, shocked by his response, and stared at him. He who had been trying to get rid of you from the start of their journey. Katsuki was pretty worried about you, Ejiro said. He even held on to you when the healer injected you with the cure. Oi, shitty scales, don't start sprouting lies, Katsuki yelled. Ejiro pouted. It's the truth and you know it. You feel heat rise to your face. Thank you, both of you, you say pointedly looking at Katsuki, who avoided your gaze. Even in the darkness of the night, you were sure a slight tint had colored his cheeks. I can't wait to share a bedroll with you again, traveler, Ejiro expressed eagerly. What makes you think you can now? Katsuki asked frigidly. But Katsuki, your fever has gone down, Ejiro whined. Yeah, but do you want it to spike again, dumb lizard? I think you're being too strict, you add. Katsuki glared. Don't you start. You and Ejiro argued with Katsuki a little more, but as the crickets began to sing, Katsuki's resolve waned. You did end up sharing a bedroll with Ejiro, though you tried not to show your smugness in front of Katsuki in case he changed his mind. With Ejiro by your side and Katsuki not far away, you slept peacefully for the first time in days, grateful for the protection of the barbarian prince and the crimson dragon.